Premier League match week 1 has officially ended, and in this video I'm going to break down everything that happened from Friday, Saturday, Sunday and Monday, right? If you are watching this video, I would appreciate if you can watch the video carefully till the end and tell me what you think about this Premier League match week 1. When you take a look at the Premier League games, right, you discover that the game started on Friday, Liverpool against Bournemouth. Then 5 games were played on Saturday, 3 games were played on Sunday, and 1 game was played on Monday. Now let me take you guys back to the first game that was played on Friday. The first game that was played on Friday was that of Liverpool against Bournemouth, and in that game Liverpool won the game 4-2. So this was the highest scoring game in this Premier League match day 1, and in that game Mohamed Salah scored a goal, his first goal of the season. Hugo Ekitike scored his first Premier League goal of the season for Liverpool. Cody Gakpo scored his first goal of the season for Liverpool also, right? And on the other side, that's for Bournemouth, you discover that Semenyo scored 2 goals in that game for Bournemouth, and Federico Chiesa scored also another goal for Liverpool. So these were the goal scorers for the game between Liverpool and Bournemouth. When you take a look at the Premier League table, you discover that Liverpool is occupying the first spot, of which I'm still going to get to that level, right? When we take a look at the games that were played on Saturday, like I said, 5 games were being played on Saturday, and the first game that was played on Saturday was the game of Aston Villa against Newcastle, of which the game ended 0-0. No goal was scored in that game, and in that game against Newcastle, Aston Villa defender Konsa received the first Premier League red card of the season. The guy was sent off, so Newcastle played the game for more than 20 minutes Newcastle played the game for more than 20 minutes against 10 men Aston Villa players, right? And now when you take a look at this Newcastle squad without Alexander Isak, you discover that they are lacking a lot. And I just pray that maybe in the next days ahead, Alexander Isak is going to make up his mind and return to Newcastle, right? Even Eddie Howe, the head coach of Newcastle, was asked about the absence of Alexander Isak, and the guy was like, you guys can see how difficult it is for us, but for now let me just keep the game aside, because the game actually ended 0-0. Points were being shared, so Newcastle went back home with 1 point and Aston Villa went back home with 1 point. So Aston Villa played the game at home and Newcastle were the ones that played the game away. After the game of Aston Villa against Newcastle, the game of Tottenham against Burnley started immediately, and in that game Tottenham won the game 3 goals to 0, because Richarlison scored 2 goals in that game, and all of those 2 goals were assisted by the new signings Mohamed Kudus that was signed from West Ham, and Brennan Johnson scored the 3rd goal of the game, and at the end of the day Tottenham won the game 3 goals to 0. I think that was actually a bad start for Burnley and a good start for Tottenham. Let us just see if things are going to favor Tottenham in the next ahead. But before this first game against Burnley, Tottenham played a game, that's the UEFA Super Cup game, against PSG and lost the game through the penalty shootout, because the game ended 2-2. Now during the Tottenham and Burnley game, Sunderland played against West Ham during that same time, and Sunderland also won the game 3 goals to 0. So Tottenham won a game against Burnley 3 goals to 0, and Sunderland also won their own game against West Ham 3 goals to 0. I'm sure many of you guys are surprised. Because this game of Sunderland ended 3-0 in favor of Sunderland. Remember, Sunderland was a championship team last season that was promoted back to the Premier League this season. And remember, these guys played the playoff before they got their promotion to the Premier League. They have spent a lot this summer. They have spent close to 120 million pounds, and it is for a reason. They deserve to win the game, and they won the game 3 goals to 0, right? When you move further, you discover that Brighton versus Fulham was another game that was played on Saturday. Brighton versus Fulham was another game that was played on Saturday, of which the game ended 1-1. So points were being shared in that game. And if you watch that game, you'll notice that the equalizing goal was scored around the 90th minute, 90 plus. I think just few minutes were left for the final whistle to be blown. Like, the goal was scored during the additional time. So the points were being shared between Brighton and Fulham. When you take a look now at the final game of that Saturday, to cover that Manchester City, Wolverhampton against Manchester City was the final game that was to be played on. It was the final game that played on Saturday, and in that game, Manchester City won the game 4 goals to 0. Yes, Manchester City of Pep Guardiola won the game 4 goals to 0. I watched the game. I cannot pretend to you, the first 35 minutes of that game were not that good until Erling Haaland scored the first goal for Manchester City before Manchester City started playing. So Manchester City won the game 4 goals to 0. Erling Haaland with a brace. Erling Haaland scored 2 goals. Tijani Reinders, Manchester City new signing from AC Milan, scored another goal, and Ryan Cherki, also another signing of Manchester City from Lyon, scored the 4th goal of the game that gave Manchester City all the 4 points, and now they are sitting at the top of the table, right? When we take a look at the games that were played on Sunday, discover that 3 games were played on Sunday, and the first game that was played on Sunday was that of Chelsea against Crystal Palace. Yes, Chelsea against Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest against Brentford. These 2 games were actually going at the same time, and Chelsea against Crystal Palace ended 0-0. No goal was scored in that game, though we expected more from Chelsea, but it did not happen. Crystal Palace instead scored a free kick, of which it was cancelled. So Eberechi Eze scored a free kick, and that free kick was cancelled. Like, I will take this moment to appreciate what the Premier League have done, because Eberechi Eze's free kick was cancelled because the moment he touched the ball, his captain Maggi, he was less than a meter away from the barrier. So that was the main reason why the free kick was cancelled, and it was actually VAR. The referee had to have some interventions with VAR before he could cancel that free kick, and at the end of the day, the game ended 0-0. When you take a look at the game of Nottingham Forest against Brentford, this game ended 3 goals to 1. And in that game, Chris Wood scored 2 goals in that game. Remember, last season, Chris Wood was one of the top goal scorers in the English Premier League, and he was the top goal scorer in Nottingham Forest. And this season again, the guy actually started it very rightly, like good. 2 goals in his first Premier League game of the season 2025-2026, and they won Brentford 3 goals to 1. I can still remember when I predicted the Premier League season of 2025-2026. In my prediction, I said I feel like Brentford can be relegated because they lost their best coach, Thomas Frank. They lost their best player, Brian Bomo, and they lost also their best midfielder, Christian Nogat. So all of these 3 players have been impactful for Brentford in their recent success. But this game against Nottingham Forest was actually a tough game for them, of which they suffered a defeat 3 goals to 1. And when we take a look at the final game that was played on Sunday, which was actually the game of the day, Manchester United versus Arsenal. Yes, of which Arsenal won the game 1 goal to 0. But this game was actually the game that defines what we call the English Premier League. The game was very, very interesting. Manchester United dominated the game from the first minute till the last minute, but Arsenal ended up winning the game. And I don't know, people are complaining, saying that the goalkeeper made a mistake. And some people are complaining, saying that there was a fault on the goalkeeper before that goal was scored by Califuori, right? Let me just tell you guys something. In a football game, what is important in every football game is the 3 points. Yes, it is the 3 points that is important. Even if you have a bad game and at the end of the day, you are going back home with the 3 points, then it means you had a good game. Because when you take a look at this game between Manchester United against Arsenal, Manchester United had 7 shots on target, 0 goals scored. Arsenal had 3 shots on target. Manchester United had a total of 7 shots again off target, making a total of 14 shots against Arsenal, and Arsenal had 3 shots off target. So 14 shots against Arsenal, and Arsenal had 6 shots against Manchester United. And at the end of the day, Arsenal won the game. And also, when you take a look at the final game of the Premier League day of Matchweek 1, right? The final game of the day was that of Leeds United against Everton, of which Leeds United won the game 1 goal to 0. Massive congratulations to them. Now, when you take a brief look at these Premier League games, these 10 Premier League games that took place from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, you notice that 2 clubs that were promoted from the Championship back to the Premier League won their first game of the season. Sunderland won their game against West Ham 3 goals to 0, and Leeds United won their game against Everton 1 goal to 0. Guys, before I get into the Premier League table, right, I will appreciate if you can like this video, you comment, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, let us take a look at the Premier League table. When you take a look at the Premier League table very well, right, from the games I've just mention, like if you have been watching the video from the games that I just went through, you notice that Manchester City is at the top of the Premier League table with just one game after match day 1. Manchester City at the top of the table with 3 points, followed by Sunderland with 3 points, followed by Tottenham. Tottenham occupying the 3rd spot with 3 points. Liverpool is occupying the 4th spot with 3 points. Nottingham Forest occupying the 5th spot with 3 points. Arsenal occupying the 6th spot with 3 points, and Leeds United is occupying the 7th spot with 3 points. So 7 clubs won their first Premier League game of the season 2025-2026. And when you move further to the table, you discover that Fulham is having 1 point, occupying the 8th spot. Chelsea is having 1 point. Crystal Palace is also having 1 point. And now when you move now to the second part of the table, right, you see Brighton with 1 point, Newcastle 1 point, Aston Villa 1 point, Everton 0 point, Bournemouth 0 point, Brentford 0 point, West Ham 0 point, Burnley 0 point, and Wolverhampton is at the bottom of the table also with 0 point. And now when you take a look at this Premier League table carefully, you discover that it is very difficult at this point in time to predict the Premier League. Yes, it is very difficult. One of the favorites to win the Premier League title this year to me is Arsenal, if I'm not being biased. But when you take a look at the first game against Manchester United, you discover that Arsenal had a lot of difficulties winning that game. But one thing I know about Arsenal is that if they score you a goal first, they can defend that goal till the last minute of the game. And also the game of Manchester City was something else. The game was very, very good, but just that the first 35 minutes of the game were not that good. Liverpool also tried a lot of things, and we are seeing how impactful the team is going to be on them. Chelsea on the other side did not play any good game. Manchester United to me played the best game in this Premier League match day 1. And also guys, if you have watched the video right up to this point, who do you think is the clear favorite to win the Premier League title 2025-2026? Who do you think can be considered favorite to win the Premier League title this season? And now when we take a look at the goal scorers in the English Premier League after match day 1, you discover that Erling Haaland is still at the top of the table already with 2 points. He scored with 2 goals. He scored the 2 goals against Wolverhampton. We have Richarlison also, who plays for Tottenham, with 2 goals. He scored his 2 goals against Burnley. We have Semedo, who scored 2 goals against Liverpool, and we have Chris Wood, who scored also 2 goals against Brentford. And now when we leave these goal scorers and take a look at the Premier League match week 2 that is coming up, right? Remember, match week 2 is starting on Friday, and the first game on Friday will be that of West Ham against Chelsea. After the game of Chelsea and West Ham on Friday, Saturday we'll have Manchester City versus Tottenham. We'll have Bournemouth versus Wolverhampton, Brentford versus Aston Villa, Sunderland against Burnley. We'll have Arsenal versus Leeds United, right? When we take a look at the games that are going to be played on Sunday, we'll have Crystal Palace versus Nottingham Forest, Everton versus Brighton, Fulham versus Manchester United. So Fulham versus Manchester United is going to be the final game that is going to be played on Sunday. And then on Monday we have the final game of match week 2, which is going to be that of Newcastle against Liverpool. Match week 2, the game of match week 2 to me is the game of Newcastle against Liverpool, which is actually going to be the final game of match week 2. Now let me run through the games, like let me run through what happened on this match week 1, right? Like I've analyzed everything. Total goals scored across all the 10 fixtures, total goals that were scored across all the 10 fixtures of match week 1 in the English Premier League. 24 goals were scored across these 10 games that were played. Now highest scoring match was that of Liverpool against Bournemouth, where the game ended 4-2, scoring a total of 6 goals. And then the biggest home win was that of Sunderland, 3-1 against West Ham. Biggest away win was that of Manchester City against Wolverhampton. Then like I said, when you take a look at the top goal scorer, you see Erling Haaland with 2 goals, Richarlison 2 goals, Chris Wood 2 goals, Semedo also with 2 goals. Now Sunderland made a statement in their return to the top 5, to the top flight, with a 3-0 victory. Like I said, Sunderland was just promoted back to the English Premier League, and they were one of the teams alongside Leeds United that won their first Premier League game of the season 2025-2026 after gaining their promotion from the Championship back to the English Premier League. And then Manchester United 1-0 loss at home to Arsenal continued concerning trend. So people have been asking, is Manchester United going to continue this way, or things are going to change in the next days ahead? But for now, I can tell you guys something. What I saw in Manchester United against Arsenal, if they can continue with that momentum, then they will definitely be among the top 5 at the end of the season. But also, one thing that is disturbing me is the midfield of Manchester United. Yes, how is Manchester United going to play 38 games? There is also the Carabao Cup that is going to be played. How are they going to play all of these games with just Casemiro, who is already at the end of his career? We have Kobe Mino. I think Manchester United still need to sign at least a midfielder. We have close to 2 weeks before the transfer window should be closed, and I believe they need to sign at least a midfielder in case things don't work well for them in the days ahead. Those players can replace them, because when you take a look at Arsenal, you discover that even their best 11 is, even when their best 11 is on the pitch, there are still players on the bench that can be substituted. The same thing for Manchester City, the same thing for Liverpool, the same thing for Chelsea. But Manchester United is different. When you see their best 11 on the pitch, and when you take a look at the bench, you discover that there is no big player again on the bench. So I believe they need to go and get some players, and also player breakthrough debutants and new signings like Hugo Ekitike. Like I said at the start of the video, Hugo Ekitike made his first debut for Liverpool in the English Premier League, and in his debut in the English Premier League, he scored a goal and provided an assist. And also, when you take a look at Tijani Reinders in his debut in the English Premier League, first game in the English Premier League for Manchester City, he scored a goal and provided an assist also. So guys, I've come to the end of this Premier League match week 1 analysis, and if you have watched the video right up to this point, may God continue to bless you for supporting me, and I will appreciate if you can like the video, you comment, you subscribe to my YouTube channel, and most importantly, you turn on the notification bell, so when next I post videos that are similar to this one, you'll be one of the first people to see it. And most importantly as well, I will appreciate if you can share the video. Also, I am active on all social media platforms. I am on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube, so you can check me out on all these social media platforms, so we can enjoy the football season together. And as you are watching the video, I am going to come up with more videos like this one in the next days ahead. See you guys until my next video.